Code 5. The warrior owns defeat. The warrior knows that honor is not found only in the victory. There's so much talk today about how failure is just an illusion. And in fact, one of my friends, he adamantly says all the time that there's no such thing as failure. And I understand the framework and I understand the sentiment, but I don't know if it's as helpful as being a person who actually revels and thrives in failure. Because whether failure is a mental construct or a reality, the reality of life is that all of us struggle with failure. The reality of life is that all of us will face failures in our life, and maybe we'll even feel like failures. And one of the great, I think, illusions in life is that heroes only win, they never lose. And we've created a mythology of greatness where if you're great at something, it's easy, and if you over-spiritualize it, if God is with you, failure is impossible. Well, if that's true, then I'm really in trouble, because I've lived a life full of failure. I have failed time and time and time again. And yes, I understand that it's not failure if you learn from it, and failure is never the end of the story, and that failure is just a transitional period. And I frankly feel that way in life all the time. I mean, one of the things I love to do is play basketball with my friends, and I always remember my times of playing basketball from kind of two different frameworks. I remember when I win, and if I win a lot, I remember the wins. And if I lose, I remember the moments where I accomplished something that I'd never accomplished before, accomplished something that was a goal, and so instead of thinking of the loss, I think, oh, I love that drive, or I'm really proud of that layup, or I remember that deep three I hit, or that great defensive move, or how I stole that ball. Because inside of every failure, there are things you can celebrate. Just like inside of every victory, there are things you can improve, and things you can critique, and things that maybe were not at the standard of expectation or excellence that you hoped or expect for yourself. But I think that what's really important in this is to realize that if you work from a framework that you never fail, that you may actually be abdicating responsibility for the failures someone has to own. One of the great dangers in our culture is an abdication of responsibility. Part of the reason I like owning failure is that I understand that when I take ownership, when I take responsibility for a failure, it means I have confidence that I am empowered to change the outcome going forward. You cannot change anything that you do not take responsibility for. When you abdicate responsibility, you actually abdicate your power. When you do not take ownership, you relinquish your responsibility. This is the shortest chapter in the book, and I think it may be the most significant chapter in the book. I think our cultural understanding and relationship to ownership may be the most important conversation that we need to have right now. If you're a person who never takes ownership for failure, it means you are actually a dangerous person, because you will transfer responsibility for a failure on someone else. And people on your team will know that when you succeed, you'll take responsibility for the success. But when you fail, you'll displace blame for the failure. There's a reciprocal relationship. A person who does not take ownership for failure is a person who always takes the credit for success. Who wants to be on that team? Who wants to be on the team with the superstar where everyone says they won because of him, and then when they lose, everyone says they won because he doesn't have a good enough team? When you're a teammate, it's a no-win scenario for you. When I look at the scriptures and I hear God's conversation, even all the way back to the conversation with Cain, when he's struggling with his relationship with God and his relationship to his brother Abel, I think it's significant that God says to Cain that sin is crouching at your door and you must take mastery over it. That phrase to me is so significant. God is actually saying to Cain, you have a choice to make, but you have the capacity, you have the power to make the right choice. This is, I think, one of the significant mental shifts we have to make in life. That if you do not take mastery over your life, if you do not take responsibility over your choices, you will spend your entire life from a position of victimization. You will always see yourself a victim of your circumstances, a victim of society, a victim of your environment, a victim of other people. You'll always blame someone else for what's going on and what's going wrong in your life. And think about this just for a moment. If someone else is responsible, then you are completely dependent on them to make your life better. The person you blame is the person you empower. If I blame you for circumstances in my life, that means I have confessed that you are more powerful than I am. You can actually do more to make my life better than I can. Frankly, I don't want to give anyone but God that kind of power in my life. The only person I want to live in such a relationship where I say, only you can fix this, is God. When I live in relationship to other people, I want to take ownership, I want to take responsibility, because I want to have the power to change it, and I'm willing to take the responsibility to make it better. What in your life right now are you abdicating responsibility for? What in your life right now are you deferring your own ownership? The warrior understands that they must take ownership of defeat. And here's the beautiful thing. When you own defeat, defeat cannot own you. So it doesn't mean that you now live a life that's fatalistic, going, of course I'm going to fail. Of course I'm going to be defeated. I think the beauty of the warrior is that even in defeat, they remain undefeated. When you live your life for honor, when you live your life for what is right, when you live your life for the good and the beautiful and the true, it doesn't matter whether people see you as a failure or whether they see you as a success, because you know you've lived your life for the right things. Years ago, when we came to Los Angeles, we were endeavoring to try to do some great things here in the city, and I was calling a handful of us to risk together, and one of my friends actually stood up and said, just tell us that God's gonna do it and we're gonna be with you. And I told him, I said, I don't know. I don't know how this is gonna play out. I don't know if we're gonna fail or succeed. I just know this must be done. I know somebody needs to do this. And I wanna live my life in such a way that whether it's called a failure or success, I know I've given myself to something worth living for. What's the point in winning at something that doesn't matter? What's the point of having a success for something that has no significance? I would rather fail or face defeat by fighting a battle that actually mattered, by living a life that was trying to make a difference. In fact, be careful. If you never fail, it may mean that you've never risked. If you've never failed, it may mean that your dreams have been way too small. If you've never failed, it probably means your life has been way too small. Maybe you should step into a space where failure is guaranteed unless God shows up. See, once you no longer avoid failure, once you're no longer afraid of defeat, then you will find your most heroic self. Then you will walk in the way of the warrior. Then you will know, though defeated, you're undefeated.